Okay, how did all Americans end up calling black people African American? Not all black people come from Africa. I've always been confused by this, and I actually asked an American friend of mine because I didn't grow up in America. And she seemed mind blown. She could give me an answer. And I'm not hating, I'm just curious.
Because right now in America, we have a ridiculous dialogue going on because there's some reactionary, self-hating Africans who are trying to convince other American Africans that they don't come from Africa, that they were already in America. They're positing that America, the American continent, was a cradle of civilization. Mind you, no scientific research at all backs this theory up. Okay.
Even Europeans can't dispute.
It's indisputable. The Chinese just came out last month. One of the top geneticists in China who now stated that their first ancestor in China was an African, and every Chinese carries the DNA. The East Indians have already done this. Mexicans have done it. So you mean to tell me the people in the diaspora who look the most like the African American, you have nothing to do with Africa genetically? It's ridiculous.
As an African living in the United States, I used to share the same sentiment that Africans share about African Americans because I had a hard time when I first moved here. People used to always tell me, "You're not black enough, you're an Oreo, you're secretly white on the inside," as if I wasn't literally from Africa. But I now understand after living here for 8 years that black in the United States is a very specific criteria, and anything outside of that just doesn't fit. But I want to help African Americans understand that Africans coming to the United States are immigrants, first and foremost. Then they are Nigerian or Senegalese or whatever country they're from. And then at some point, they are black. But Africans don't put black high up on their identity well as much as African Americans do. And that is for legitimate reasons on both ends. And so when an African is coming to the United States, they're thinking to themselves, okay, I'm an immigrant here. I have to do my best for myself and my family back home. The sacrifices that took for me to get here were no light work. Okay, so I need to really align myself with what's going to make me successful in this country. And because it's the United States, it's the dominant culture, which is white American culture. And so Africans are going to instinctively ally themselves with the culture that's going to give them the most success. I mean, African Americans even admit that they have to code switch to be successful here because that's what brings success. And so Africans are like, all right, we'll do that. And it also doesn't help that for a long time, Africans are fed a very negative view of Black American culture, and that's its own propaganda. But because Africans are so conservative and they're coming to a country where Black Americans have been labeled as the antithesis to this conservative traditional family values, they have, if anything, more in common with Southern Baptist white racist people. But that aside, going back to identity markers, Black Americans put Black first and foremost, and then everything else goes below it. And so they're thinking when another Black people come to our country, they're going to want to integrate with us, the other Black people, because Black comes first. And they get quickly disappointed in realizing that for Africans, Black and the identity and that coming is not first. Their immigrant identity comes first, and then their country. And if anything, for us as Africans to feel like that's my brother, that's my brethren, or whatever, you have to come from the same tribe as us, because we have so many Black people around, we don't automatically pre-select for Black. But Black Americans don't have so many Black people around, have had to defend and protect their culture amidst a dominant white culture. And so they already pre-select and are overprotective for Black. And so that's why I think at the core of it, there's a deep misunderstanding because of not realizing that we put where we put our identity markers and what we put first and what we prioritize are so different culturally because of our differences in trauma, realistically. And so it does make sense that Black Americans will be like, oh, my people, my brethren, come here. And Africans coming to the United States are like, I'm just trying to make it here. It's a lot of work to immigrate to the United States. And so y'all can stay over there, and I can see why it's hurtful, and I can see why it's taken personally, and I can see the deep misunderstanding and the betrayal that African Americans feel but it's unfortunate, and that's just a reality. But if we can talk about it from this perspective, I think we can get to a better understanding. But I also believe that Africans that spend enough time in the United States get to this compassion and understanding of the Black American community, because it is a very unique and specific set of circumstances for a culture to grow and to develop.
One of the most common questions I'm getting is, you African, how did you not know how life is in America? And how did you want to move here so bad? Did you not know? Did you not know? And the answer to that is no. We do not know. I can only address this question and answer it from a South African's point of view. Television in South Africa, I believe, came in the 70s. That means that a lot of us didn't get television till mid-80s, 90s. Again, I can only speak from a village girl's point of view, those of us who grew up in a village. If this television came in the 70s, it didn't immediately come to us native South Africans, so that took probably another few years or a decade. So 80s, early 90s, that's when we have our first TVs. So you're talking about late 80s, 90s of South Africans who understand apartheid, Jim Crow, who are living in the experience, who are living in that depression and that horror and that treachery, right? And so when we open up TVs for the first time and we see Bill Cosby, when we open up our TVs and we see R&B, and we see beautiful African Americans, we see actors, we see them being police in police shows, they are being represented as major parts in movies. That's what we saw. We know nothing about birth. We know nothing about Birth of a Nation. We know nothing about what you guys are going through. What we are seeing from a South African's perspective is like, oh my God, these Black Africans made it. Look at them doing it. Of course I want to be like that. I'm tired of this apartheid here. It looks like African Americans got their stuff together in the US. You have to remember colonization, racism, imperialism, all of that. It will never expose itself. We have to go out of our way to expose it. So no. The media we are consuming, African American media, is nothing but positive things about America. It is not up until rap music do you realize that there's something going on in America, right? But even in rap music, then you watch the award shows, and then all of a sudden the rappers are dressed nice, they're talking nice, they have all these multi-dimensional, diverse friendships and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, maybe rap music is just art. It's not depicting reality. So there are these factors that are in place, and we all cannot forget that African Americans are misinformed about who we are. They are constantly being told that we are nothing but loincloths, we are weak, we did nothing, right? That's to make them not want to attach to Africa. Okay, that's on purpose that they have you guys feeling like that. When we come here, what's the first thing that we hear? Americans are lazy, right? And so picture that dynamic where you think African Americans are all celebrities. You walk in here, you have different people telling that African Americans are lazy, and it is a mindfuck. It takes time, but we do sort it out. And that's why there's regret later. We never knew when we left.
Hello tribe, I go by Sherlock in this particular platform in case you're joining us for the first time. Now in today's video, we're going to talk about why do all Americans call Black people African American. And not all Black people, of course, came from Africa, but here's where things get even crazier. Some folks are now claiming that African Americans were never, and I repeat, were never, from Africa at all. And this conversation is heating up, and you don't want to miss what is coming next. Now, you join us. We're going to watch from different quarters, different sentiments, different allegations made by different people of color. I meant not really to say that one. And then, of course, at the end of it, we shall come back again. Literally, we'll come back with more sentiments and more comments over the same insightful one. But along the line, if you feel that I've stepped on your toes, don't hesitate. Do drop me your comments on the comment section, your thoughts, your comments on what exactly you think as far as blacks in America are to go by. Let's keep on watching.
And I just think it's so sad that Africans and African Americans are literally fighting with each other, especially when we have such a rich history of helping each other. I made a video about it and I'll tag it so you guys can watch it. But anyway, let's answer this question. So we all know that Africa is a continent, right? So Africans, whether you're from Kenya, you're from Ghana, you're from Nigeria, you're from Tanzania, you're from South Africa, you have such a deep and rich culture. And a lot of Africans take pride and love their culture, so they don't like to be categorized as something that they're not. And that's not to say that African American culture is not beautiful and wanted in its own right. So I think what we're just saying is that I don't want to be recognized as what I'm not. I want to be recognized as what I am. And I've actually also seen this in the other sense. Like, for instance, I travel, I've done study abroad, and when I go to different countries, if you're Black, they automatically, majority of the time, assume that you're African. Now, there are times that me and my African American girlfriends will go out and explore different places. So people would ask us, oh, you're African? Like, where in Africa are you from? Me and my African girlfriends would say, oh, yeah, we're from Africa, and then we'd list the different countries that we're from. And I would never get offended when my African American girlfriends would clarify and say, no, I'm American, and they would tell them where they're from. And that's because I understood that that's the culture they grew up with. That's what they feel connected to. That is their culture. So they're going to rep it, just like we want to rep ours. And I feel like that's the same for any African country as well. Like, if someone came up to me and said that, oh my gosh, you look South African, I would be like, oh, thank you, but no, I'm Nigerian. I would clarify. I wouldn't feel offended, but I would clarify. And you know what? I've seen this beautiful trend of African Americans moving around and going to live in different African nations for a short period of time, right? And you know what? If someone from that country comes to you and speaks to you like you're, I don't know, Kenyan, or like you're from Ghana, right? You would more than likely clarify and say, oh yeah, I live here. I'm living here for a short period of time, but I actually am American. And I don't think there's anything wrong with clarifying. I honestly think it's beautiful to even bring some of your culture and rep it there in the country. That doesn't mean you have to disrespect their culture as well, of course. And us Africans, we're going to take our culture everywhere. We're extra. We are very, very extra. So, I don't think we're trying to say that, Black African American culture should be discredited. We're not trying to say that. All culture is beautiful, from the food to the clothes to the language, to the clicking of the tongue to the sucking of the teeth. So I hope that clears it up. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
Yo, I hate when Americans ask me where I'm from. They be like, where you from? I'm like, I'm from Florida. Nah, where you from? Jacksonville, Florida. They're like, no, you're not American. Where you from? What? Where you from? Shoot.
As Black Americans, we need to normalize when people ask us where we're from, we simply say we're from America, because that is true. But you know what? Some people are intellectually curious, and so they might say, oh, via where? And, they might be trying to build a bond with you. And you can simply say, I'm multi-generational American. My ancestors came to America via the transatlantic slave trade hundreds of years ago. And I use that all the time, and people literally grasp it immediately. Even if they don't, they know enough not to keep prying and ask. It usually closes the door. Also, I think because this is the global history of so many countries around the world, like Jamaica and Haiti and Barbados and St. Vincent, St. Lucia, I can go on. But for some reason, sometimes when Black Americans, because America has such an immigrant history, there's a perception that you are a first and second generation immigrant. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And sometimes people are just simply asking because you remind them of their countrymen, which I think is a really good compliment. But also, as a Black American, you don't owe anyone a history lesson. Sometimes there is an educational deficit in their home country, or there is somehow an educational deficit, culturally, and they just don't have that history and they don't have that context. Yes, they understand Americanness and they understand Western culture, and they see Black Americans on TV and all these things, but a lot of times they don't have the historical context. And if you feel like it, go off and give them the history lesson. But what I will never do, it's no shade to y'all, what I will never do is look somebody dead in their eye and tell them I don't know where I'm from. Because I know exactly where I'm from. And I'm super proud. It's a super rich history with a super rich cultural context and diaspora community.
The fact that some Africans don't think African Americans are American is crazy to me. Because a Dominican that lives in the Dominican Republic is a Dominican, right? A Haitian that lives in Haiti is Haitian, right? The same way that an African American is a American, because we live in America. We are Americans. We are African Americans. And I've been seeing a lot of videos about this, which I do understand, because I'm not ignorant to how somebody's trying to explain something to the best of their knowledge. I understand that, like, people who live in different areas of the world, they try to explain and categorize things in a certain way, which I do understand that, but you have to respect whatever country that is and how things function in that country. Like, I would not go up to a Puerto Rican and they're dark skin like me and call them black. And that's not, they don't understand that, because they don't say that there. Like, that's not a thing that they say. If you say black, that's a thing that we say in America. I would call them what they are supposed to be called because of how their country functions. But I wouldn't go to somebody's country and call them something that they're not. Like, I would be appropriate to how their culture does things, as long as it's not disrespecting any guidelines with my religion. I'm gonna call you whatever you guys do over here. You know what I mean? And I just feel like there's a lot of Africans that are low-key trying to attack us black people, and I think it's kind of weird, because it kind of give like, are you salty that you didn't come over here? Like, what's really going on? Like, really, genuinely, like, is you mad that they didn't put you on the ship and get you over here? Like, that ain't nothing to be bragging about, but y'all be itching to come to America. That's really what be shocking. Y'all want to live over here. Like, I don't get it, because I want to move, but y'all want to come over here. So the fact that some Africans don't think African Americans are American is crazy to me, because a Dominican that lives in the Dominican Republic is a Dominican, right? A Haitian that lives in Haiti is Haitian, right? The same way that an African American is a American, because we live in America. We are Americans. We are African Americans. And I've been seeing a lot of videos about this, which I do understand, because I'm not ignorant to how somebody's trying to explain something to the best of their knowledge. I understand that, like, people who live in different areas of the world, they try to explain and categorize things in a certain way, which I do understand that, but you have to respect whatever country that is and how things function in that country. Like, I would not go up to a Puerto Rican and they're dark skin like me and call them black. And that's not, they don't understand that, because they don't say that there. Like, that's not a thing that they say. If you say black, that's a thing that we say in America. I would call them what they are supposed to be called because of how their country functions. But I wouldn't go to somebody's country and call them something that they're not. Like, I would be appropriate to how their culture does things, as long as it's not disrespecting any guidelines with my religion. I'm gonna call you whatever you guys do over here. You know what I mean? And I just feel like there's a lot of Africans that are low-key trying to attack us black people, and I think it's kind of weird, because it kind of give like, are you salty that you didn't come over here? Like, what's really going on? Like, really, genuinely, like, is you mad that they didn't put you on the ship and get you over here? Like, that ain't nothing to be bragging about, but y'all be itching to come to America. That's really what be shocking. Y'all want to live over here. Like, I don't get it, because I want to move, but y'all want to come over here. So
as a conscious African, I must push back against this constant display of ignorance by some African people against African Americans. African Americans must know that this is not the sentiment of a majority of African people. The constant disregard and disrespect of African American accomplishments, of their struggle, of their grace, of their excellence, of their fortitude must stop. It is embarrassing. It is heartbreaking. African Americans must know that this is not the truth. If you ever get a chance of visiting the continent, if you've ever visited the continent, you will know that you are loved, you are supported, and you are embraced as a member of this African family, because you are a member of the African family. And this display of ignorance by Africans, especially those Africans who have decided to settle on this soil, on American soil, must understand that it is because of the struggle, it is because of the sacrifices of African Americans that we are able to be here, that we are able to enjoy these things. And so you are exposing your own ignorance speaking this way. Stop it.
We did not all come from Africa. We all came from melanated people who were Africans, Europeans, Australians, Asians. Science states that at one point there was Pangea, right? And all of the countries that were named by white people and given their titles by white people, but that's another story for a different video, were at one point one landmass, right? That doesn't mean that Africa was the only geographical space. It just means that all of the landmasses were one landmass, but Africa was still there. Europe was still there. North America, South America were still there. Asia was still there. Australia was still there. Antarctica was still there. You see what I'm getting at? These landmasses still existed. Recognize that this may be a hard concept for people to grasp because we have been brainwashed for so long and because our history is not told by the people that look like us, but melanated people were everywhere, on every continent. Meaning it is incorrect to say that everybody descended from Africa. That's not true.
Yes, Black Americans are the blueprint of Black people, honey. Get it together.
I'm so tired of videos like that, and I'm also tired of the responses because I feel like they just drift us more far away than we already are. So dear African Americans, we are thankful for the music that you bring to the world. We are thankful for the dances, for the culture. Yes, you have your own culture. I know people try to take that away from you. You have your own culture, for the lingual, for things like that. It's a lot of joy. But you are not the blueprint for the rest of the world. All of us have our own culture. We have our own music. We have our own trends. We have our own dances. We have our own. The most of us just have more than one bubble to live in. So we still like to look at your bubble and enjoy it and might get inspired by it. But our inspiration comes from more than one bubble. And instead of always focusing on the differences, on the different outcomes and where we're based, there's one thing that we all have in common, and that's the story of pain. If we talk about, oh my God, if we talk about the genocide in Namibia, if we talk about the genocide in Congo, the extreme, insane level of racism in South Africa, the whitening of the whole South American continent, the history of slavery in so many parts of African countries, but also obviously in the US and South America, of the strategic, this word is so hard for me to pronounce, the strategic weakening of Afro-American families, there is so much pain to it. And I feel like we should use our time in understanding each other's pain. There's so many good documentaries about our countries, our histories on YouTube, and we don't take the time to actually understand each other's pain, because I feel like when we understand each other's pain better, and not saying like, oh yeah, but they suffered less, but yeah, da 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 da. Also, our brothers and sisters like in Africa saying like, oh yeah, but African Americans have it easy. We all have our own struggles, and we all come from our own struggles of pain, and I do feel like we should respect them and we should see them. Looking into each other's struggles to understand how strong our joy is, because there's one thing you could never take from Black people, and that's the joy they bring to the world. That's the joy, no matter how bad the story, no matter how bad the situations, you see them giving life to the world. So I'm so tired of people focusing on like who's better and who's not, because that's colonizer mindset. That is like what they used to kill your grandfather and to rape your grandmother, because they felt like they're better, and we adjusting to that bullshit. Instead of that, understanding that there's one thing that unifies all of us, and that's like the pureness of our joy and the pureness of our heart and the strength that we hold in each other. I'm so tired of that shit. And we finally in this beautiful time where we feel like, okay, we're winning. We're getting seen for the strength and the beauty that we hold. So let's don't focus on shit that divides us. There's no point in it. This is such a beautiful time. Let's get it together, and let's use this time fully in uplifting each other. Like, let's use our time to understand each other so we can build each other. That nonsense dividing shit is not serving none of us, and we should know that by now. We can do so much more beautiful things with our energy.
I've seen a lot of Black Americans asking why Africans hate them, and I'm going to answer the question for you. Number one, this American ego transcends race. It doesn't matter if you're white American, brown American, or Black American. There seems to be like this ego that makes you think that you are the main character wherever you go. Therefore, when you go to places in Africa, you get surprised when you're treated like just another tourist. I've heard people saying stuff like, they only cared about my dollars. Yeah, this is a supermarket. You've gone there expecting a kinship and connection with people whose history
diverges from your history. When those slave ships took off, the countries that, you came from, they went on. There were still things happening to them, and there's still things happening to them today. Your history isn't as shared as you think that it is. There isn't this kind of black kind of community in a lot of countries in Africa because everyone's black. I would get it if you were in Sweden and you're walking past another black person and they didn't smile at you, and it's like, we are the only black people here, like, in this city. I'd get it. But you can't go to Africa and expect black people to care that you're black. And also, it's not even just it's not a hate of black Americans. There's a hatred of Americans in general. A lot of places do not have a great history with America. And while it's very much clear to us that we can live in countries like England with terrible histories and who are right now selling billions of pounds and arming places like Israel, we can understand that within these countries there are different politics, there's different dynamics, there's still social hierarchies. You cannot expect people who are on the receiving end of the violence of the countries that we live in to care that we are not at the top of the social hierarchy here. But I get called European child by my own relatives who I am literally biologically related to. Because nobody cares, because I was raised in Europe, so I might as well be white to them. You can't go to other countries and bring the race dynamics of your countries to theirs. And there are places where you go where people won't treat you like that. People will accept you and will be like, oh, I'm so happy that you're here. But you guys keep going to places that are heavily populated by tourists, by American soldiers, and a lot of these American soldiers are black. And then you're acting surprised when people aren't that, shocked and happy to see you. So to conclude, it's not that they hate you, it's that they don't care about you.
Tribe, welcome back again. As I'd promised you at the very onset of this particular show that I'll, round up with, more insightful thoughts about the same. So I'm going to read something small here. Why, of course, that is the question that we have to ask ourselves. Why do all Americans call black people African American? And when not all black people came from Africa? A bone of contention. It is very true, it's an obvious thing that not all blacks hail from Africa. Like as if black was, dominated in Africa. We also have other, countries. We have the Dominicans, we've got the Jamaicans, we've got some Indians. We have some shades of Indians that are black, but why are they not literally referred to as Africans in that particular context? And of course some people claim that, again, in the same mix of ideologies, others claim that African Americans were never from Africa. Those are the self-hating ones, but also do stand corrected. Let me know in the comment section if that or if they do exist. And of course they claim there is a growing movement around of people saying that African Americans are indigenous to the Americans and not Africa. Those are the ones, the self-hating ones that I'm referring to this particular context now. But a legitimate research supports these. That meanwhile, geneticists worldwide, from China, India, Mexico, etc., around the world, confirm that the earliest ancestors were African. Even European scholars don't dispute African as the origin of humanity. And contrary to that is that there's a clear evidence, and some people are still denying African ancestry, which creates a confusion and, of course, a division. And of course, the identity is shaped by nationality first. Like, for example, you have Nigerians, Ghanaians, and Senegalese, and then race. And then, of course, the identity is also rooted in the black experiences in the US, including history, culture, and systemic oppression. Africans don't always lead the blackness because with blackness. And this is because in their home countries, everybody's black. Everybody's black. But in the US, blackness determines treatment, status, and of course, opportunities. Now, and then of course, we have got the African American, who are seen differently by different groups. Now, these are the quick questions that we need really to answer. Why do some people reject the label? How did African American become a blanket term? African American became a blanket term. And then of course, where did the idea that African Americans were already in America originate? Now, those are the questions that guys and tribe that if you've listened to this particular very end, you're a very special person, and then kudos. Let me know of those particular 3 questions, and maybe the answer to especially the last ones. Where is the idea that African Americans were already in America? That particular notion of that particular idea, where did it originate from? I go by Sherlock once again in this particular platform, in case you bumped across it accidentally. Give me that particular thumbs up there, a like, that is, a subscription, a tiny little subscription in the comment, a subscription rather, and of course a tiny little comment on the comment section. Those 3, they'll do me good. And again, tribe, stay tuned, because we are going to be exploring all these particular hot topics that are, making up titles, making up, headlines globally. Stay tuned.